Make sure you check this out on YouTube, guys. It's Sight Fishing 101. You're going to learn a lot in this video.
I'm Reehm with the Elite Angler Academy, where I'm teaching anglers how to go beyond the elementary of fishing. In this new series I'm starting up, it's basically going to be the 101s of pro fishing, coming straight from the mouths of tour-level anglers that have lived it, breathed it, invented it, designed it, figured it out, and perfected it. Whether it's sight fishing, frogging, deep cranking, electronics, things like that, I'm going to start interviewing tour-level pros, getting the inside scoop on techniques and magic baits that anglers need to know about to make them better. For this first video series, I've interviewed 10 pro anglers at the recent MLF Pro Circuit event at Lake Murray in South Carolina. There's going to be two dominant patterns at this event: blueback herring spawn and sight fishing. And so this first video, I actually interviewed quite a few guys that are world renowned for their sight fishing ability, and a few guys that, have caught fish off beds, just to get their inside scoop and insights about what might help people become better anglers. In this video, I'm going to cover things from these guys where we go over mistakes that anglers make, the magic baits, fry garters, cruisers, what do you do on rolling fish, how do they go about approaching a fish, from start to finish once they have a waypoint of it. One thing they cover is when do they sight fish and when don't they? So I'm actually having to break this down in about 5 videos because of the sheer amount of information that's there from the guys. So again, if you enjoy this video, please subscribe. I'm going to be releasing these pretty quickly. And then at the next event at Lake Eufaula in Alabama, I'm going to interview a whole bunch more guys and start stockpiling. So let me know what you want to hear and see. And in the meanwhile, enjoy this series on Sight Fishing 101. Bobby, do you consider yourself a sight fisherman?
I do consider myself a sight fisherman, and that doesn't mean that the fish have to be on the bed for me to be sight fishing. I'll put it to you that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've won my share of money looking at them.
Man, honestly, I don't mind it, so I guess maybe a little bit, but I'm definitely not an expert.
Well, not now. I used to be a bona fide sight fisherman. Now I will go catch some fish off beds, but as far as the hardcore going after it, not anymore. I used to be.
I try to shy away from bed fishing and sight fishing, to be honest with you. It's not my forte. I've done it plenty of times. The last couple of days I've been doing a lot of it, but it's not something I look forward to doing, so I'm neither.
I do. I've done it a lot. That's kind of how I got started. I was really good at that early in my career when there wasn't as many people that bed fished, and that's kind of what, that's how I got my foothold. That's how I was able to catch fish on places that I was unfamiliar with, and so I enjoy doing it. It's one of my favorite ways to catch them for sure. This is a great lake for us. It was a good learning ground for me.
Yeah, it's something I have confidence in and I like to do. I actually weighed in 2 of my good ones yesterday sight fishing. They were 3-pounders, but so that kind of got me to where I was. But there's a lake in East Texas they call it Perky. Some people call it Brandy Branch, and that's where I go to practice sight fishing. And I like it. It excites me because you kind of see like what size the fish is, and it gets personal. When you find one that won't bite, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get you. You just wait and see.
Yeah, I like doing it. I actually grew up how I got into bass fishing. We have a pond in the backyard that we've lived on since I could walk, and I actually fell in love with bass fishing, walking around that pond, sight fishing big old bass off the bed, and then I ended up working my way up all through the steps to where we are at now. So sight fishing is actually what got me into loving bass fishing.
You're a modest guy. I'm not going to ask you how much money you've won in your career sight fishing, but what percentage would you say of your career, of the money you've won, has come sight fishing?
That's a great question. I would probably say close to half, maybe a little, and that's generally because of the 2 big wins. So that it's a big portion of it. Maybe not quite half. Maybe a little over a third, between a third and a half.
But that's a lot of extra $10,000 checks on Pro Tour,
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't know. Maybe 50 grand.
like that. I've caught some big ones. It's never just straight sight fishing, you know, but it has helped me in tournaments where I've done really well in tournaments, and they added a few fish here and there.
All right.
It's so hard for 4 days to do nothing but sight fish.
A few 100,000.
Well, you know, I try to always mix up a mix of sight fishing and fishing a different way. So to just say a number out there, it's hard, but it's a couple $1,000s for sure. It's just a way, like I said, I never like to just throw all my eggs in the sight fishing basket, because it's hard, that'll burn you a lot of times, but I do like to mix it in. I like to find a couple of those key fish. If you can get them to bite, it'll be a nice kicker to your bag for sure.
I think that's probably a question that's hard to answer, because how many fish did you catch off a bed that you didn't see it, but you threw to it because you knew there's probably a fish on a bed there? Like flipping bushes. You're basically bed fishing, but you're flipping to that bush knowing that there's a bed at the base of that. So, you know, I've probably done a lot more bed fishing than I have sight fishing over the years. So I've won a lot of money catching fish off of beds, but not visually fishing for them.
Probably like pure sight fishing, probably maybe 20%. Yeah, I mean, because you got to figure how many tournaments we fish a year. Probably 2 of the tournaments that we fish in any given year, sight fishing's a player. And if sight fishing's going on, that's what I'm doing. So I would probably say 20% of my career earnings could probably be attributed to sight fishing.
I think my total is somewhere between 22 million, 8 or close to 3 million, and I'm going to say over half has been made sight fishing. So $1 million+ at looking at those fish on the bed.
All right, what is the difference in a sight fisherman as opposed to somebody that just randomly sees a fish on the bed and catches it? Because you know all the major players on tour that are sight fishermen.
Yeah, I think it's the guys that's what they really want to do and like to do. They spend their time doing that and looking for them, no matter what the conditions, and they're going to live or die by it. So I'm not quite that extreme most of the time, but I let the fish tell me what to do.
Well, an actual sight fisherman is a guy who's going to dedicate most of the practice, if not all the practice, just looking and go by the numbers of fish that'll still be there. And you know, it's a quick way to win, but you can also get burned pretty quick. But it's a way to catch giant sacks. And so, you know, sight fishermen are good fishermen, but when it's a sight fishing time, the actual sight fishermen, that's their game, and that's all they do.
Yeah, so, you know, sight fishing it's weird. You want to make sure that everything's lined up. Like the sun, you want the sun to your back. You want to watch the fish. You want to find the bed, and then the key is when you find a fish that's on a bed, what's crazy is you fish that one bed, catch that fish, and then you put your trolling motor on 100 and you look for another bed. A good sight fisherman looks all around that bed in little places that most people don't think, and it makes him become a better sight fisherman than the guy that just marks a white spot, goes to the next white spot and the next white spot. Remember, where there's always one, there's several more, because a guy can come right in behind you and catch another one, and it's a fish that you just didn't see. It's pretty crazy. You need to really keep your eyes in 360 mode when you're out there.
I mean, sight fishing, now that's a whole nother, that brings in a lot. That's not just fish that are on the bed. You know, sight fishing to me is cruising fish. It can be sunning fish, and of course bed fishing. And it's just, it's like you're like a hunter. I mean, that's kind of what I think is cool about it, is being able to actually look at those fish or look for them. And when you do see them, I mean, it's almost like you're stalking prey. And that's, to me, it's just exciting. It's exciting to see the bites. And that's one of the few times that you can actually see bites. I mean, obviously you see a topwater bite, but that's different. It's different to me when you see one approaching a bait and you get to see how that fish reacts to your movements or whatever, your different colors you choose or different baits you throw at him. It's just a game. I mean, it's a whole nother game within a game, within this game of fishing. And it's one of my favorite ways to catch them.
What would make you make that the game plan for a tournament that you're going to?
It has to be the perfect week. It has to be the perfect weather. It has to be the perfect lake. So many things have to line up perfectly that for me to even consider just doing that the whole time. But it's just not, especially with an off day, and this tournament, something you found yesterday is probably gone tomorrow, unless it's a big male, 3 or 4 pound male. But yeah, you just can't do it anymore. I feel like tournaments back in the day had better chances to be won on sight fish more so than now.
This one right here is probably one of the best scenarios for it, was because literally the fish that were around the bank were either garden fry or bed. That was it. They weren't up there feeding. And so for me to fish shallow like I want to, I was kind of forced into it. So this is a situation where, if I got to, or, it's a matter of sort of a circumstance too. Like if I'm going down the bank flipping and pitching or fishing docks and I see one on a bed, you always got to keep your eyes peeled for that, because it can really change your day. My big fish yesterday was a 4-pounder, and I caught it with like 15 minutes left to go because I was just paying attention and seeing the fish sitting there.
Yep, so that's a cool question. I fish the B.A.S.S Pro Tour where every fish over 2 pounds counts. Fish the Pro Circuit where only you need 5 to bring in. If I have a limit or I got 4 and I find a big one and I got plenty of time and the fish looks active, I'll spend 20, 30, 45 minutes on it, knowing that there's a chance of me catching that one if the bite's okay. If I only got 1 fish in the well and it's kind of being finicky, man, I'm getting out of there quick. It's a hit and miss situation. You're right, the herring spawn's going on. You got pre-spawn, post-spawn, there's everything going on Lake Murray right here in the middle of April. And you just got to keep your mind open and don't spend too much time on one fish, because a guy's going to pull up right in front of you and start fishing the stretch you wanted to fish while you're sitting on one that's not going to bite.
Generally, if it's a spawning time of the year, and what I mean by that is mid-March through all the way through April, that's going to be my number one thing that I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on that because it's something that I've had success with in the past, something I'm confident in. And so if I can rely on my strengths doing something that I've not only like to do, but I've had success with in the past, then I'm going to go ahead and try to do that. But I also kind of felt like being South Carolina for this particular event, we were probably further along than I was hoping for, or what I was thinking of. But so I didn't want to just kind of put myself, we only have 2 days of practice. So you spend all your day doing one thing, or your whole practice doing one thing. It's a great way to kind of mess up. So that's why I didn't spend my entire time just doing that here. But basically, if it's a prime time spawn, if there's a full moon and you're, say, first part of April, and you're in a more kind of a little bit more northerly climate, then I would probably say, yeah, I would have probably put all my eggs and spent all my practice just looking for big ones. And that's generally what I would have tried to do. But at this one, a little strategy was involved.
This probably would be, like Murray would be a good example of that. Early in the spawn is a good time to be bed fishing. When the fish are just pulling up, typically the first wave has the biggest fish. Some of the biggest fish pull up in that first wave. And as you fish that tournament, you're going to have fish coming. The later in the year you get, the later in the spawn season, the fish, they start transitioning more to fry guarding and things like that. And then you're starting to have some post-spawn fish doing other things. And that's when, like, you can still go out there now and sight fish. I doubt this tournament's going to be one sight fishing. Some guys probably made the cut. I don't think it'll be one that way. And so I think that a lot of times, even though you enjoy catching them, and I do, I enjoy catching bedders, later in the year, like that second and third wave of fish, like it looks promising, and they don't stay as long. That's another thing. Those last waves don't stay there near as long, in my opinion, and you can get burnt by them, more so than the ones that come in for the first time early. So that's what I would say.
Like there are fish on beds here at Murray, but the deal is, if they're big females up where you can catch big sacks, I think that would dictate constant, sight fishing. Where in this one, there was just some up and some around, and you couldn't win it just sight fishing, so you had to mix it up.
Because I remember a tournament at Smith Mountain Lake that you won throwing the swim bait when it was predominantly sight fishing. Talk me through that.
Well, there was a lot of the big females were done. They were post-spawn, so that's why I was targeting the post-spawn fish that had moved off the females, and that worked out pretty good. just the fish will tell you what to do. So it's like if you can't find enough bedfish, then you got to go figure out how to catch them. If there's a lot of bedfish, then you got to just figure out how to cycle through and figure out which ones to catch and which ones are the better quality ones, and not waste your time on little ones. And that's the magic question is how long do you spend trying to catch one? And so I've sat on fish for long periods of time and it's burned me, and I've sat on a long period of time and caught a big one that saved me. So that's always a fine line of how long you stay on fish and when you move on to the next one. So now I'm to the point pretty much like, if they don't bite pretty quick, I'm out.
How many beds do you have marked coming into this event?
Oh man, not a whole lot. I probably had a dozen maybe, and I didn't even fish for them yesterday, but I actually went today and caught one. I ran 8 miles to go catch one fish, and that's saved my butt. So
I'd say I probably got 30 beds marked right now.
Is it going to be your primary pattern or technique for this event?
I'm going to be catching, I'm hoping I can catch at least the first day my whole bag off the bed. But after that, depending on how the weights are after the first day, depending on what other bedfish I have left and how much weight I need to catch the next day, I might either go catch a couple bedfish and go do something else, or maybe even catch another round of bedfish the second day.
So you're saying it's pretty much going to be your primary for the event, but you're
pretty much my primary is sight fishing.
I really don't know. I don't know. Not that I've just seen just a ton of them, but there's quite a few up there, and I'll even mark small ones that I think maybe a female might pair up with. Also, I'll mark some fish that I really don't think is going to help me in the tournament per se, but if I've seen a group in an area, a cluster in a larger area, that gives me an idea that there's fish coming and going. That's a spawning area, and I want to know kind of generally where they are. So I really don't know how many I have marked. I don't have just a ton because I did quite a bit of just regular fishing in this event, just because I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket. Hindsight, I'm thinking maybe I should have, just because I didn't catch just a ton fishing, but I don't know how many I got marked.
Do you have any marked on beds at this event?
One.
Because
there's really dumb, stupid fish that didn't move, so I figured I'd drop a waypoint on it. But I've gotten more away from it. I just don't think it's so hard to win tournaments, especially a 4-day tournament, sight fishing. So I've tried to get away from it and try and catch the ones that are spawning that I can't see.
I have 0 fish that I have marked on the bed for this practice. What I did is looked at the overall forecast. It's supposed to get really, really windy. Today's our day off, and it's showing there's whitecaps out there now. It's going to blow that pollen around. It's going to make a mess. I mean, I have marked a couple that are easy to catch. I don't know if they're on the bed or not, but I'm not going to waste a lot of time on those fish. I think the guy that fishes to his strengths here, maybe run the herring spawn, then maybe go fish up shallow looking for fish, fishing, not committing to one on the bed that might not be there. You just wasted 10 or 20 minutes sneaking up there looking. You get there and there's no fish, so you just wasted. One of the hardest lessons I ever learned was waypoint fishing, and that's where you have 20 waypoints and you run through all those waypoints by 11 o'clock and you got one fish in the box. When really, if you would have just put your head down and said, okay, there were 3 waypoints in this pocket, but I'm just going to fish the whole pocket. And when I get to one of those waypoints, if I don't get bit, don't get frustrated, just keep fishing. When you start to fish on your waypoints is when you have some of your toughest tournaments.